What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my Forma building guide for this month's HoF Revival featuring Brave Edelgard, Dimitri, Lysithea, and Claude. We're going to be having skills up to the Emblem Seagate banner, which means that Momentum 4 and Shield Fighter is in the pool, which is going to be a big thing for many units. So let us begin with Brave Edelgard, and she has Godflower Clear as her weapon refine. This was already a pretty nice weapon and it didn't get the most insane refine, but still it was good enough. So this does give her -1 special cooldown, which is really important with Shield Fighter as you're able to use Pavis with Emblem Ring. And at start of turn, she's going to be able to give herself the +1 movement and the order status. So this makes her mobility much better than a lot of the armors. And Soaring Echo is a pretty common attune skill on many of the flyers, and that is not going to be giving warping to any kind of armor, but that's fine because Brave Edelgard is not going to be needing it as much as the other armors. So this makes her mobility quite good and she's able to keep up with a lot of her teammates, and she also has the option of being run as an assigned decoy near Savior with Brave Sorin because of having this kind of mobility. At start of combat, if her HP is at or above 25%, then she's going to be inflicting -6 attack and defense debuff on the foe, and if she's within 3 spaces of an ally, then she's able to get extra stats to her attack, defense, and resistance depending on the spaces moved by whoever initiated ×2 added with 3. So this can go up to max +9 attack, defense, and resistance, and then she inflicts another round of -6 attack and defense debuff on the foe in the combat. And she also is able to heal up 7 HP in the combat on her attacks. And then finally, she's able to get the guard effect on the foe if the spaces moved by whoever initiated is 1 or more, which is going to be the case many times, but even then guard is not the most insane effect right now. Brave Edelgard is a bit older unit and we have got some insane armors. Even in the free-to-play pool, we have got Marnie as an option, and there's also Halloween Na as a premium green armor dragon. So Brave Edelgard is not going to be on their level obviously, but she's able to still keep up with the times because of her weapon refine and also because of Shield Fighter. And a big reason why a lot of people are going to be getting her is because getting Shield Fighter is really hard and you probably do not have a lot of Shield Fighter lying around as a free-to-play player or low spender. So this is a really great chance, and this is a build that you could try and get on her. Harsh Command Plus is going to be quite nice as an option, and Armored Blaze or Armored Beacon, depending on the save skill that you usually prefer running, it could be run and it could be taken for the maximization of the Forma value, because even though she's going to be running Pavis or Aegis with Shield Fighter, in case you ever want to run her without Shield Fighter, then those specials could be run, and they're also not that easy to get compared to Pavis or Aegis. And Emblem Marth is going to be her best emblem with Pavis because you want to make it a 1 cooldown special so that you could get the special jumps out of Shield Fighter and consistently trigger it. And that's one of the things that she's able to do because of her weapon refine, which even Marnie is not able to do. Marnie is forced to run Escutcheon because of not having the -1 special cooldown in her weapon. And in case you do not have Emblem Marth Ring, then you could run Escutcheon as a 1 cooldown special, but the damage reduction that you get out of Pavis is really good. For her, Slotty Close Defense stays as a really good consistent skill that you could try and get because it is going to be ignoring any kind of visible buffs of the enemies, and it is amazing for this kind of pure tanking. But you might have gotten this last year when Brave Edelgard initially got run in the Holo form, so you could try and get some modern options like Fortifications. So it's a really cool option because Edelgard has got the mobility to initiate combat in the player phase and then set up her own stone terrain. So this is going to be giving her the distant counter effect as well, and it does lead to better tanking against the AoE specials. If you don't want to initiate combat in the player phase, then Stronghold could also be an option for the cleansing of the debuffs and panic. And then finally, Earth Fire Boost is also an option, even though it does overlap with her weapon with the guard effect, but it still gives her the extra HP, which is good for having more bulk. When it comes to the pure matchups, I really prefer close defense, and that's why I'm showing it with this kind of build. And for Slot B, you absolutely have to get Shield Fighter. It is the skill of the year in my opinion. If you thought Lagoo's Friend and Breath of Life 4 were really good, Shield Fighter is on another level of absurdity. So it gives you so much unpierceable damage reduction and also gives you the flat damage reduction, and the special jumping does help you against the Brave effect and also against any kind of follow-up attack. and it is going to be available to be used right from the first combat, unlike Hardy Fighter. So it is a must-have if you're going to be getting Brave Edelgard in this Hall of Forms. And as you'll see in a moment, Shield Fighter completely upgrades her tanking prowess. It does mean that you'll have to use her with defensive specials like Pavis and Aegis, but it is really helpful for just surviving the insane nukes that we have got. And if you get extremely unlucky and if you still want to get the Forma Brave Edelgard, then at least try and get Reopening for its flat damage reduction and true damage, which is going to be scaling off of her defense. And it's really nice that she doesn't have guaranteed follow-up attack in her weapon, so you get the full value out of Reopening, but obviously it's not going to be on the same level of Shield Fighter. And then finally, Weaving Fighter is also an option, but all of its damage reduction is going to be completely pierceable. For Slotsy, you should try and get an ear save skill if you don't already have it, but if you have used her for a while now, then you probably already have an ear save skill on her, or you got it in the last year's Hall of Forms. So there's no point of getting another near save variant. So you could try and get Breath of Life 4 instead, which is going to be amazing for tanking, and it also helps you tank against the AoE specials of someone like Emblem Seeker. And it also means that if you're going to be running her in an assigned decoy team composition with Brave Sorin, then she's able to support her allies with Breath of Life 4 while still acting a really solid near savior. So it is an option that I would suggest if you already have a save skill on her. And if you do not have the far save skill, and if you really want to get that as well, then I guess you could try and get it. Unfortunately, the twin versions of the near and far savior are not going to be available in this Hall of Forms, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because they don't really work for defensive specials anyways, and they're just marginally better for Shield Fighter builds as they just give you a bit more healing. I usually don't show simulations in my videos because they don't always reflect the reality of the actual combat and matchups, but I just want to show you how absurd Shield Fighter truly is, because this is going to be the first time many players are going to be tasting blood with Shield Fighter in the game. So here's the matchup of Brave Edelgard against a plus 10 merge max invested Brave Felix, and he's not just plus 10 merge, he also has plus 10 Emblem Celica ring, and he has got Precharged Gust, he has got all of his visible buffs and also 3 mythic buffs, and he also has his Lone Wolf activated, and this actually shows the 2 initiations that he's going to be doing on Brave Edelgard. And you can see that even at this kind of low merges, she's still going to be able to hold her ground against the best melee nuke in the game pretty much, and one of the best, if not the best unit in the game. And there's also the fact that I've got Mystic Boost Sacred Seal here, which might seem a bit odd, but it's mainly there to disable the adaptive damage or the Hexblade effect of Brave Felix. And Brave Edelgard, all things considered, does have a pretty decent mix bulk compared to a lot of the units, but still, you ideally want Felix to attack her higher defense, so that's why Mystic Boost is going to be there for improving her matchup. Not only that, there are a lot of units that can get the Hexblade effect easily, so it does help, but if you don't want to run it, then you can run Squad Ace BX Sacred Seal for more bulk. And she can actually survive a 3rd initiation by Brave Felix, but she's going to be dying on the 4th one at this kind of investment and no support. And then we have got Emblem Seeker, another boogeyman of melee nuking. He has got pretty much 100 attack, and he has got 3 mythic buffs, plus 10 Emblem Celica, and plus 10 merges, and even solid ground for maximizing his AoE damage. And the thing with Emblem Seeker is that he does so much AoE damage, but if he doesn't do any kind of actual damage in the combat, he's not able to finish off the units. So she's able to survive with 1 HP, and obviously it does get better if you run her with Hathrin for her Divine Nectar support. Then we have got another really powerful melee nuke who just pretty much manhandles any kind of unit at melee, but he's also not able to kill Edelgard even at this kind of absolute max investment with plus 10 merges and with his bonus doubler and also a plus 10 Emblem Seeker ring. There are many other strong melee nukes, but still this does showcase how she can still keep up with the times with Shield Fighter, and if you run her as a far savior, then the challenges are going to be different with a lot of the insane range nukes. So near saving is something that I prefer more on her, but because of her bulk and stuff like fortifications, far saving is also something that you could try and do. While Shield Fighter is disgustingly good, it's not without its weaknesses. So one of the things that a lot of units are going to be trying against Shield Fighter armors is trying to run Miracle because most of the time the Shield Fighter armors do not have as much firepower. Only Duo Fiorm is an exception because of her damage reflection. So these armors are not going to be hitting hard and you can easily survive with Miracle even with the frail units, and you see that a lot with any kind of unit who has got Brave attacks or Special Charges status or Null Guard, because with the Brave attacks you're able to quad attack and you are able to hit them with your 4th attack, against what Shield Fighter gives you no damage reduction. So that is your chance of killing a lot of the Shield Fighter armors. And there's also the case to be made for the potent follow-up attacks. There are not that many potent units, and potent as a skill only gives you 40% of your actual damage as the potent follow-up strength. And one of the units that makes insane use out of it is Hresvelg. And on paper, Hresvelg can kill Lady of Hresvelg here with enough penalty and visible status on the foe, and she has got the uncapped true damage. So those are some of the things you need to keep in mind while using Shield Fighter Saviors. Yes, they are pretty near invincible, but they're not completely immortal, and they're going to be making more counters to them as we go on with the game. Brave Dimitri got an insane weapon refine for that time, and he's going to be here with Moon Gradivis. It does have distant counter built in, and it also gives him special charges +1 per foe's attack in the combat. Now this only gives you these special charges on foe's attacks and not on Dimitri's own attacks, but that's fine. He's mainly going to be retaliating back in the enemy phase, and if he's within 3 spaces of an ally, then he's able to get +5 to his speed, defense, and resistance. He also gets true damage based on 20% of his defense and the flat damage reduction based on 20% of his defense. Unfortunately, this doesn't get added into the AoE special protection, so he's going to be a bit susceptible to that. And he was one of the first units to get the flat damage reduction weapon refine, at least to this degree. And he also debuffs the foe's defense by -5. And finally, it has got Del attack defense built in. So like I discussed in Edelgard section, ignoring any kind of visible buffs of the enemies is always going to be useful, especially if you're going to be up against some kind of bonus doubler or buff reliant type of skill. He also has a preferred skill in Blue Lion Rule, and this is definitely outclassed now in phase of Lagu's Friend and even reopening, I would say. So it is pretty much going to be a defense-based Dragon Wall. The one good thing about this skill is that it gives him the damage reduction against the AoE specials, and we have got quite a lot of AoE nukes. So when you combine this with the Stone Terrain or with Goto's 80% damage reduction status, then it does mean that he is going to be a bit resilient to the AoE specials. But again, it is going to be facing a tough competition, and it also gives him the guaranteed follow-up attack in the enemy phase. But if you're going to be getting him in the Holo forms, then you're definitely not going to be running this skill. So Brave Dimitri had a pretty good time when he got the weapon refine, but the competition for tanking just kept increasing, and also trying to keep up with the insane nukes also became harder. We definitely got some tools with Lagu's Friend and Breath of Life, but at this point I feel like if you want to go with a Lance Infantry as an Omni tank, then Attune Temera is really powerful and much better. And sure, she doesn't have the raw damage output with the base attack like Dimitri, but she has got much better tanking and also the frozen effect in her Sandstorm. And a lot of the modern green units are just going to be hitting so hard like Attune Micaiah that it's going to be really a tough battle to survive them, or they're going to be insanely bulky like Brave Alphonse, and they're just not going to be taking any kind of damage from Dimitri and also doing a lot of damage themselves and then running away, which is going to be making it harder for Dimitri to kill every last one of them. But if you're a big Dimitri fan, then you could definitely try and make him work out with the premium skills here, and also by giving him a lot of the support with units like Sethith, for example, that can help you stack up even more flat damage reduction. And of course, AoE protection is something you're going to be needing. So when it comes to his special, unfortunately, he's going to be missing out on Boulder from Ninja Diamant. It is just too recent. It is not going to be available in the Holo forms, and it's a big shame because it significantly changes his matchups because of its unpierceable damage reduction. So if you want to get the Forma value, then you could pick up No Quarter or Gust. No Quarter is going to be redundant with Lagu's Friend, and Gust is going to be useless with his kind of speed, and I would really not recommend to speed stack on him. I know many people used to speed stack on him, but even back in those times, it needed him to be at like max investment and with a lot of support. But now, I don't think it's really worth it, especially with Boulder being a thing if you could give that to him. So Gust, speed stacking and tanking is not something I could recommend in good faith, because nowadays even units that are not even trying to be fast and they're kind of slow are still able to be as much speed or more than him, even at like unmerge or a +1 merge, because they get like +14 out of their weapon. So that's a lot of speed, and Brave Dimitri is simply not going to be able to keep up with that kind of speed stacking. Ultimately, you're going to be running Bonfire or Ignis as a special once you get him out of the holoforms. And for his slot A, you could try and run Earthfire boost. So I really like it as it can give you the extra HP, and it also gives you the guard effect, which can help you sometimes, but any kind of modern unit or refine is going to be having some kind of special charges, tempo, and like special jumping, or all of them. So the guard is not the most useful effect, but still the bulk does help. And an Omni tank like Brave Dimitri, who really tries to make use of all of his stats, could take advantage of bonus doubler 4 as a skill, but you're going to be needing some good support like Ectenair, for example, to bring in the visible buffs. And Attack Defense Excel is also an option that you could run for flat damage reduction stacking, but the thing is that Brave Dimitri doesn't really have a player phase, so he's not going to be making much use out of the skill in the player phase, and it's mainly going to be there in the enemy phase against the enemy's special triggers for the flat damage reduction. But still, it's an option that you could consider, as we have some big movement units now in the game. And Attack Defense Finish is also an option as a last resort, but if you got him in the last year's holoforms, then he probably already has Defense Res Finish anyways, so a lot of people are probably not going to be getting this, and the other options are going to be much more incentivizing. For his slot B, you absolutely must be getting Lagoo's Friend, like you must be getting Shield Fighter on Brave Edelgard. So Lagoo's Friend gives you even more flat damage reduction and true damage based on his defense, and you also get full damage reduction piercing, so he doesn't have to run no quarter. And I know in something like holoforms, not always things are going to be going your way, especially with the increasing pool of skills. So if you get extremely unlucky, then reopening is going to be an option. It's basically a light version of Lagoo's Friend, giving you true damage and flat damage reduction, but it doesn't give you any kind of damage reduction piercing, unfortunately. And it is going to be nice as he also doesn't get guaranteed follow-up attack out of his weapon. For slot C, Breath of Life is going to be an amazing new tool that he can use for tanking, and it does scale off his defense, so it is really good for him for getting the healing, and it's also really helpful against the AoE special and any kind of remaining pre-combat damage users that might be left there. But if you already have it on some other allies, then you could try and get Odd Defense Wave. So this is a pretty underrated option, as you're able to get the full tempo effect, and he does have the defense to make use of this. And the full tempo effect goes really well with the special charges of his weapon, and also with any kind of guard effect that you could try and get with Earthfire boost. So it's a pretty nice one, and Time Belts 4 can also be used with Emblem Ike and any kind of higher cooldown special. Even Attack Wave N is also going to be an option for getting some healing and for getting the true damage and stacking more attack. And again, Mystic Boost is going to be needed on this kind of tank build, because he needs it way more than Brave Edelgard. He has got really low defense, and Brave Felix is going to be targeting his resistance otherwise. And if you don't run Mystic Boost, even like a base kit unmerged Brave Felix can kill you. So you need this really badly. Think of Mystic Boost as Byleth. You're going to be needing it if you want the best ending for him. Brave Lysithea is a red infantry mage with Dark Spike's Tau as her preferred weapon. This does have -1 special cooldown after the refine, and before that she also had the +3 speed out of it. She does have effective damage against cavalry foes, which especially helps even more now as we've got some insanely bulky cavalry units like Brave Alphonse. And if Lysithea's HP is below 100%, and if she initiates combat, then she's going to be getting the Desperation effect, and she also has the guaranteed follow-up attack. So the Desperation effect can be really good for nuking, but you gotta watch out for hardy-bearing tanks, which are even more common nowadays. And guaranteed follow-up attack does act as a pseudo half-null follow-up in a way, and she does have the 1 HP self-damage at sort of every turn to activate this condition of her weapon. And this kind of self-damage is not going to be like many of the other units, and it is not going to be spreading out to the other allies. and it is only going to be damaging Lysithea. It also gives her the Otter status, so it does help her with the mobility, and then she's able to get plus 12 attack and speed in the combat depending on the conditions, and she also gets special cooldown plus 1 per her own attack. So opposite to Brave Dimitri, this is only going to be given to Lysithea on her own attacks and not on the enemy's attacks, which is fine as mainly she's going to be functioning in the player phase. So there's a lot of competition when it comes to player phase nukes with Desperation. A lot of them also have the Brave attacks, and yeah, I'm talking about the Ninja banner. So it is going to be a bit tough for Lysithea to compete, and she's missing out on some key effects like the true damage and the special jumping, which a modern nuke would need. But still, she can get some expensive skills here, which are going to be making her much better. So she can run Emblem Sigurd now for getting the Canto and also the +1 movement, and Flare is going to be the premium special that you could try and pick up, and it is mainly going to be a premium Luna for Brave Lysithea in most cases, and Verge of Death is going to be her main slot A skill I would recommend, because I don't think attack speed finish is that good of an option because of its in-combat healing, which completely clashes with the idea of resonance, and it also doesn't go too well with her Desperation if you're using some kind of dancer to attack multiple times in a player phase. And Flare also gives you the healing, but it only gives you the healing under a certain HP threshold, and you can easily change out that special compared to a slotted skill, which is going to be more expensive. So Verge of Death is really good for the cleansing to her attack and speed debuffs, and it also helps you protect against the panic. And if you're going to be running any kind of AoE special on her, then it also helps you with that, giving you the visible attack. And for the slot B, Resonance is going to be the best slot B skill, as she needs some kind of true damage, so she can get that from it. And keep in mind that the benchmark for Resonance is going to be 50 HP, so make sure to run the Squad A Sacred CL if you don't have her at higher merges. It is going to be essential for getting all of the effects out of Resonance. It also gives you 60% damage reduction piercing, which can be helpful, and if you don't get Resonance, then Magical Null Follow-Up is not that bad of an option, as it will give you damage reduction piercing and also the full null follow-up effect, which goes really nicely with her Desperation effect of her weapon. And if you get extremely unlucky, then attack resistance tempo is something you could also run for the damage reduction piercing. And the Null Guard does help with the special charges of her weapon. Unfortunately, speed resistance tempo is just way too recent and it is not going to be available, so you gotta make do with the attack variant. And then finally, for slot C, she's actually got a couple of options now. Time Pulse is a pretty nice one for triggering specials with her Desperation on her follow-up attack, and it goes really well with the special charges effect of her weapon. So you could also run some high cooldown specials, especially if you use her with Emblem Martyring. But you could also try and use some of the other options like Inside Attack Speed, which can give her more offenses, and it doesn't really overlap with the order status of her weapon, like the Oath skill or even the Pledge skill in a way. And Creation Pulse is a really new skill which can help you combat the Scowl effect, but it is going to be needing some support from the allies for inflicting the penalties on the enemies. Odd Speed Wave is also an option if you want to get the full null follow-up while still running Resonance in your slot B, and this can also give you more speed. And Pulse Up Blades also works similarly to Time Pulse, and it can also be helpful if you're trying to set up some kind of AoE special, so can be helpful in pre-charging and also giving her the visible buffs. Brave Claude gets the short end of the stick out of this patch. He doesn't have a lot of options as a ranged flyer. So he has got Wind Parthia, which used to be a really neat weapon when it came out because we didn't have as much healing in those times, but now we've got stuff like Breath of Life. So it is going to be giving him -1 special cooldown, making stuff like Curve Shot into a 1 cooldown special, which he could immediately retaliate back with. And in the combat, if he initiates combat or if he's within 2 spaces of an ally, then he's going to be getting +5 to all of his stats. And he does get the 50% healing based on his max HP whenever he triggers a special. And it also has the reduces deep wounds effect by 60%. So back when he got the weapon refine, this wasn't the biggest deal because Fatal Smoke 3 was already getting phased out with Dual Lift not being used that much. But again, you know, Fatal Smoke 4 came back in and then came Breath of Life. And if you run Breath of Life on him, then the deep wounds mitigation does stack up multiplicatively. So it can help you with his playstyle and with that kind of healing. And then he gets another round of +5 to all of his stats. He also gets the half null follow-up, the offensive half, not even the full null follow-up. And Null Guard is going to be helpful here for retaliating back with curve shots, and then he gets 30% pierceable damage reduction on foe's first attack, only if he has got any kind of bonus active on him. So he doesn't have any kind of preferred skill like Dimitri or Edelgard, not even an old one to rely on, and being a ranged flyer, he doesn't really get a lot of new skills or a lot of useful ones which can go along with his playstyle, because a lot of ranged flyers are mainly player phase focused, but Brave Claude is mixed phase focused. But again, there are not as many skills that could help complement that kind of playstyle. So a lot of Brave Claude fans are even going to be waiting for a new Arcane Bow at this point. He's going to be needing Curve Shot as a new option, which you can try and get. So it is going to be giving you some unpierceable damage reduction for the mixed phase usage. And he always loved having one cooldown specials like Ruptured Sky or Moonbow, even back in the days. So Curve Shot is just perfect for him, and Deadeye could give you the damage reduction piercing, but I would argue that Curve Shot's unpierceable damage reduction is a lot more something he needs, and you could always try and outsource the damage reduction piercing. You could also run Emblem Ike Ring for having even more unpierceable damage reduction, so it helps him in the mixed phase, and then you could run Firestorm Boost in his slot A. Not a lot of options, but this one gives him the extra HP, which does work well with his healing. And even at +1 merge with Summoner support and this skill, he has got 64 HP. So this can also give you the guard effect, which again, not the biggest thing, but it does help. And there is the attack speed mastery skill available, which you could try and run if you want to get the Canto out of it, instead of running a Fortress skill or Emblem Seagate Ring. Attack speed prime is anything but prime, but unfortunately it is going to be your modern option for getting the close counter effect while getting the speed. There is Close Reversal, which doesn't need the visible status effect, but it doesn't really give you any kind of extra speed. And then for his slot B, his main options are going to be Speed Defense Fortress 4, which is now in time for him, and that way he can get the true damage in both phases, which is not much, but still it does help. And it also gives him the Canto, and the other option is going to be a pure player phase option like Assassin Strike, which can give him the true damage and the pre-combat damage, but yeah, unfortunately the options are really lacking for this slot B. And slot C has got Shadow Shift as a new interesting option, which can help you provide some utility to your allies with the Canto that he has got with his Fortress skill. And he cannot have the most insane Canto, but still it can give him some stats in the combat and post-combat healing. You do have other options like Soaring Guidance, which you could try and run, but if you're going to be giving him Soaring Echo at some point, then this is going to be a bit redundant. Air Orders 4 is also an option if you're going to be running him with the Prime skill. So with Air Orders, you're able to get 2 visible status effects, and then you could just get it from the other allies. Deadly Miasma is also going to be a bit of a player phase focused effect, but it can help you set up the haste terrain, and that does have good synergy with something like Attack Speed Mastery if you go with that. And then finally, Breath of Life 4 can also be an option for stacking more healing and also stacking up the deep wounds mitigation. So it's not something he always needs, but it is going to be an option. He unfortunately doesn't have the highest defense to scale off the healing with, so that's a bit unfortunate. And Brave Claude is going to be needing a lot, and I mean a lot of support to function with his playstyle. For free-to-play support, Sethith is going to be an easy option so that he could get some flat damage reduction and get the dull ult support and some extra stats. Halloween Asker is this perfect ally with him, giving him the permanent Curve Shot, giving him the damage reduction piercing status, and also giving him the extra status effects if you're trying to run a Prime skill. Marin is also an underrated option as she can give you the bonus doubler support and also the damage reduction piercing status. And with this kind of build with Curve Shot, damage reduction piercing is something that he's going to be missing on. These are going to be our next Holoforms revival options, and whoever wins is going to be getting a revival in January of 2025. This is pretty much going to be the start of the legendary and mythic units appearing in the revival polls. I want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support, and you can click the link on the screen right now to check out my breakdown of the new Ninja banner, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as the amount of options Brave Claude has got. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.